Hey, the purpose of this video is not to ridicule Cenk Uygur. It's not to make these guys look like idiots. It's not even to criticize them. The reality is that Cenk Uygur is a guy who devoted most of his adult life to talking about political and ethical issues and, to some extent, researching them. And you can hear that at age 45, he's still just learning where milk comes from. It's a question a child might ask, but it's a question a child might not get an honest answer to.
The analogy of there are things that people think you don't want to see, right? You don't want to see where that taco meat came from at 59 cents, right?
Right.
So as I tell that story, and I know the correct answer is, no, you got to look, because then people are going to make the wrong decisions for you, right? That if you were looking, you'd say, no, don't do that, and you'd be right to say don't do that. So my problem is that I love meat, right? So
Right.
I'm doing the same thing I tell people not to do, which is I'm desperately trying not to look.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what it is. I don't want to know what it is. I fear that if I ever see how they make it, that I won't be able to eat it again.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons.
Sure. Your ethical compass would probably keep you from, certainly you'd think twice about it, or what we've done, the only thing I would say without getting into any of the stuff of what actually happens, what we've done, and we've done it successfully, because if you want not to know, which is and I don't blame people for not wanting to know, it's horrible. All you have to do is look a little bit and it's horrible, is we've completely isolated our food from what it is. It looks nothing like the thing it came from, no matter what the food is. If it's fish, it doesn't look like a fish. If it's chicken, it doesn't look like chicken. It's chicken fingers that are deep fried. And meat is the same way. Steak, all of it. I mean, it doesn't look like that animal anymore. So it removes you from the suffering and from the horror that is that industry.
So look, you're right, and the animal cruelty that happens, that's the only part that I do see, right?
Right.
When we cover that on the show, like, if you're being quote unquote decent to the cow, whatever the fuck that means, right? And then I eat it later, I can live with it, right?
Yeah.
But if you're beating the cow up and you're doing all these grotesque things to it, don't do that. Don't do that. What, you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
The only reason you do that is because you want to make an extra buck, right?
I find that, but the system that is really established and isn't kicking the shit out of something is even more disturbing to me. And like dairy. Like, I was a big cheese freak. I would have.
Oh, I love cheese.
I would always say, oh my God, a cheese store, and they're all over Southern California now, and all in major cities. They're like Disneyland to me. I would eat so much cheese, and I love it. And I started reading stuff and learning about the way they get dairy. And I thought, what's the problem with dairy? It's like the cows. Well, apparently, the cows don't give milk unless they're pregnant, so they artificially inseminate them, which is, and by the way, that's a whole other thing. I did this on my podcast, because the woman we had on had written a book about going to all these different farms. She had fallen out of Wall Street. She was a city kid who did it. Anyway, we talked about it. So apparently, they artificially inseminate the cows, and then they get pregnant, and of course, they start to milk. It's for their calf. The offspring comes. They take the calf. They toss it into a wheelbarrow. And the mother screams out. I mean, they're very maternal, these cows, right? And they wheel it off, and that cow becomes veal, okay, that calf. And they milk the cow relentlessly, the one that is left. And she's in her own mourning and the whole emotional thing. It's whatever, but they also just relentlessly milk. And that's why you need antibiotics for these cows, because those things that they attach to their udders, they create all kinds of sores and all this sort of thing. So anyway, they're milked so relentlessly, and this process is continued for their entire lives, which are short because they are so unrelentingly milked. And then they slaughter them. And those are the downer cows, the ones that can't quite get up the platform because they're so depleted from this process. So no cow is being beaten there in that description that I just gave you. That's pretty much just business as usual on a dairy farm. And so when I found about that, I thought, wow, man, I can't be part of that anymore.
Right,
and that was hard for me because I love cheese, as I just told you. But I had to push away from that. So that's the kind of institutionalized mechanism that kind of always bothered me.
I really can sympathize. We're all born ignorant, and most of us grow up and stay ignorant, especially on simple questions such as, where does our food come from? But you just heard an example of two people who are highly ethically motivated, highly politically motivated, highly vocal, highly influential, and they could be on our side. And at age 45, Cenk Uygur is sitting there at a desk figuring out the basics of where milk comes from and deciding what it means and what he's going to do with the rest of his life. That's a process some people go through at age 15, 25, but some people are going to go through it at age 65. I know someone here in Victoria, and she actually managed to convert her grandmother to veganism. And the reason that happened, I think she wouldn't have bothered, having a big confrontation with her grandmother, but her grandmother was confronting her. Her grandmother was trying to convince the granddaughter that she needed meat to live. You know the story, the regular misconceptions that if you don't have meat and dairy, you're going to collapse. And in the process, the granddaughter educated the grandmother and, in some significant way, turned that older person's life around. So look, it is what it is. Veganism is an ethical struggle. It is an ecological struggle. It is a political struggle. But it is also in some ways as simple as quitting smoking. And people need help to quit smoking and need public education to quit smoking at every age. 15, 45, 65, you name it.